I didn't shit. I didn't do this. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about any of this.
Good morning, folks. You ever have this happen to you after a long, stressful day at work? You rush home to dig into the newest LEGO Batman Batcave model kit you had pre-ordered months ago. You sit down, everything's laid out, it's all going according to plan, and you're totally pumped to build the out of this thing. You've been looking forward to this for what seems like an eternity. It's one of the few hobbies you had that really wards off the impending doom of your inevitable death, having lived a meaningless existence, fiddling away at a job you hate, bouncing between hobbies on the weekends like a jackhammer because you can't stand to settle for one thing for too long. And then mid-thought you look down and you spend an hour spaced out from the weight of those thoughts that have somehow weaseled into your subconscious between while you were separating the pieces to begin the first page of the model kit. Has this ever happened to you? I totally stole that from a Tim Robinson sketch. Anyways, that aside, welcome everyone. I hope those of you still have good moms out there. Wish your life givers a happy Mother's Day. Today's video came completely out of the blue. A couple days ago, I couldn't sleep, and it was one of those delirious 3 a.m. morning restless nights. You know, the ones where you toss and turn, and those intrusive thoughts finally win, and then you're just depressed and exhausted, having completely fucked your sleep schedule over. Have you ever had this happen? No, you get it. But funny enough it seems, the premise here isn't a question I feel like I've asked almost everyone I've known. And it's a thought that I've struggled with for years, especially during my teenage years. And maybe this is a much smaller issue to a much bigger question, and that's what's the point in doing anything? Investing any time into these personal little achievements that you, especially if you're single or live alone, only become relevant to you. Hobbies are such a wide and diverse field of interest that keep us from slipping over the edge. It's become like a self-made remedy to those hardships we tend to stumble over in life. Most of the time being spurred from a hard job or a difficult emotional journey. In practice, they typically aim in part both distract and elevate us into a better state of mind. For a majority of people, that's enough reason in itself to chase a hobby. The substance comes from self-worth and priority that we scale these to. But for some, maybe even a smaller minority, which includes myself, sometimes it just doesn't do it for us. Maybe for some folks it's more infrequent, sometimes depending on the hobby or just where you're at mentally in your life. We get older and the same things that used to hold us over for hours without break now is only manageable in smaller spurts as the adulting life allows us to. The added responsibilities, your attention span, or sometimes just the complete overhaul of interests which have killed many of the activities you loved when you were younger. Letting go of certain hobbies isn't a negative. If you found something just as meaningful to you which you've replaced that with, then that's just the next evolution to your final form to finally becoming the Pokemon master there ever was. No. All of that's fine, especially if it's ignited that spirit and looking forward to another day. Those hobbies are invaluable. But what makes that one thing so precious to you? It's significant to you and that's enough. If it holds that motivational level that I mentioned, then it should be enough, right? Well, most of the time, yeah. Those life-changing hobbies sometimes push us into new avenues of life we never thought possible. They can change a person. The people and ideas it exposes you to can change the way that you see and take the world on a daily basis. It's food for thought. It's that little nudge towards the end of the workday which kicks in so you make that 30-minute drive back home. For some people where that doesn't become enough or the premise of it has just become so stale you can't even bring yourself to do anything besides like sleeping or cleaning, or only focusing on the essentials which you've convinced yourself are the only real meaningful activities outside of work. Especially the older we get, and I'm 25, alright, so fixation on the more responsible adult-based activities tend to feel like the more substantial alternative to, say, playing the newest WoW expansion or hitting up Red Dead 2 for like an 8-hour sitting. With age, for many people, comes what I like to think are added patch notes of priority. With the day and age that we live in, I think that a big reason some of us may feel less motivated to do those things are because of this hustle-based culture. And look, making money isn't bad. In fact, the idea of turning your hobby into something you can profit from on the side is completely viable and can add an extra level of incentive that could totally bring more value to that hobby. But where's the line drawn? What divides the once obsessive love for knitting a sweater to gift someone for Christmas into an added level of stress which comes from basically having a part-time job after coming home from work? Well, money. I mean, that's what makes it a job technically, but it's also the mindset. Does it feel like a job to you? Even if it's become your career, does it still feel like something you love doing, or is it just a job? Saying it's just a job basically isn't that different from when you used to work part-time at a fast food chain to have some spending money in high school. It's become this act that we've burdened ourselves with and have kept up with only because it makes us money and keeps us afloat. But why can't you enjoy something simply based on the fact that you just like doing it? It's an answer that varies from person to person, honestly. Some of us need that recognition into something we put a lot of time and effort into, which is cool. After putting in 30 hours building a super complicated model together, you'll want to feel some validity to it. And social media has been great for that. Even if everyone you know doesn't care about what you're doing, you know someone online will at least think that's kind of neat and leave you a like or maybe an encouraging comment. There's a stigma to certain hobbies that I felt are almost universal. The mentioned modeling sets, video games, books, movies, art, there's this air about them that's different to say something like cooking or carpentry. The hobby niche in particular of savoring the work of others seem to get the worst rep and placed in the lowest scale when it comes to the argument of what are meaningful hobbies. I fell into the state of thinking where if there was a hobby I couldn't see myself doing something with down the road long term, then it felt like a waste of time. Books and video games were and are sometimes the biggest hobbies I struggle with. I really like chasing a platinum on a game and finishing a book that's a classic and I finally got around to it. Or sometimes movies. I used to really enjoy Marvel movies, and while they never added anything physically tangible in my life, they used to be fun excuses to go to the theater and enjoy this carnival-like ride. Don't get triggered by that, that was kind of a joke of what Scorsese said about them. But if you're looking for a remedy from thinking this way, I unfortunately don't have the perfectly right answer for every person. If feeling like what you're doing is meaningless and you aren't appreciating it on a personal level, then regardless, don't continue with it anymore. You're allowed to take hiatus from hobbies. There's no rules to this. You can pick it up years from now if you wanted to. But if that stain of feeling that it isn't worthwhile to you because you don't see yourself or think you could make it into a career or side hustle, then to me, I've always felt that derived from a lack of self-worth. I know because him is me. There's so many people that I've known and seen personally sell themselves short because of this, but it's not inescapable. Just because you enjoy reading books doesn't mean you need to become a writer, or try and write reviews, or do anything that could lead it to making money. Just because you enjoy video games doesn't mean you have to become a programmer or do Twitch to make it feel worthwhile. Just because you do art doesn't mean you have to try and sell all of your pieces or get submitted into a gallery. Music is another good example, because listening to music is so versatile. You can listen to something while you're literally doing anything. But with picking up on an instrument, you can fall into that trap of thinking, what's the point? And I've played guitar since I was 14, and a part of that was learning so I'd be able to play in a worship setting for church. Later down the road, I played in them for about 3 years, and almost all the settings that I played in were terribly dramatic or just mundane experiences. In fact, it turned me away from playing music in general for a while. Even while I wasn't religious, I was doing it for the performance experience. But after the long break, I came back to playing again, but this time for myself. And I'm playing the music that I've wanted to play, learning the riffs and melodies to some of my favorite songs, even while I don't know if I'll ever be able to perform in a setting where I can play the songs that I want. But it doesn't matter. Music has become this self-satisfaction for me that, especially when it comes to writing, has given me a new perspective and appreciating it more than when I first started. It's enough for me to have these songs in my mental archive. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. And for someone who beats himself down constantly for indulging in frequent quote-unquote meaningless hobbies, that was a huge step for me. And maybe that's the advice I can give. Find the one thing that you absolutely enjoy doing without any plaguing thoughts of hustling yourself out for it. Because to me, once that began, I was able to start enjoying the hobbies that I used to think were pointless. It was in a new light I didn't think could happen before. But in saying all that, you don't have to do anything. This system doesn't have to dictate what you like doing only for the sake of becoming the owner of your own business. Stop trying to corporatize your life, especially if it's beating you down. You are adding way more strife to a life that's already difficult enough as is. We don't have to make it worse. Hobbies by design are supposed to give us a positive escape from reality. They're windows into different worlds and cultures, even constructive ones. If you're the creative type, getting lost in the process of your craft is the escape to freedom. Let yourself live and love what you're doing with it nothing more than the basis of because it makes you happy.
I'm train spotting on the West Coast Main Line today, hoping to see some pendolinos bank around the corner at 125 miles an hour. Here we go, wave, waving. Oh, there's two. Oh, crossover. Ready, there's another one. Please honk. Yes!
Thank you everyone for watching this. This was such a random topic of discussion for me. After the self-help video, I wasn't really sure if I was going to do another one like this, but if the idea is there and I have something to say, then I'll do it. and if anybody would like to contribute on a video idea, please, I'm all ears. I have this fear that I'll just that I'll run into a mental block before long. I hope you made it to the end. I'm getting a little more confident with this, so I hope that'll translate into future videos. You guys take care, and remember, just relax. Enjoy painting the Warhammer 40k miniature or binging the newest season of a show. Or hell, rewatch the whole thing, who cares? You guys have a good one.